Adelaide racing panel with us. Ray Huxley is the newest member. Ray, very keen form student, journalist, radio celebrity, all of those things. Hucker, welcome to Sports World.
Pleasure to be here, Bruce.
And Lee, once again, what was your day like at Caulfield yesterday?
I had a very enjoyable day. Not so much success on the track, but some good runs, and saw some good racing.
You got any good news for us, Lee? If I could jump in,
Jump
it's so
in,
important with Shaska, isn't it?
Yeah,
Bruce?
absolutely. What's the news with Shaska?
Well, the news is much better this morning. The horse is bearing full weight and walking sound. The vet's very happy with his progress. We feel that if he continues to go in that trend, that we're still in with a good chance, I think.
Max, you were disappointed Shaska wasn't running yesterday. You felt he was wound up and had a chance against Damon, didn't you?
I think he had a great chance. Firstly, Bruce, I'd like to welcome Hucker, and it's good to see that when looking for a new panel member, you weren't looking for youth.
And he's about your British, isn't he? Hey, just before we start, we had a terrific story on Gay Waterhouse earlier in the program, and I was really interested in Richard Freedman, who's Lee's brother, and his response when Kate asked him about Gay and the publicity that she's generated.
Gay's is a very Sydney style. It's you know, she's very media conscious, and she seeks media attention. We're a different style. We're a bit more like Hayes, I guess. I guess we're a Melbourne style. We don't seek that much attention, but that's just the difference in styles.
Never known you to be shy and backward, Lee. What's all of this? The Freedmans don't seek any attention. You've had the best press for anyone in the last 10 years.
I don't think I authorised that statement.
Oh, we better get on with it. Our Maze K. Look, let's go to the Caulfield Guineas and have a look at this magnificent win by this outstanding horse, and then we'll assess him and see what his chances are in the Cox Plate. Here's the Caulfield Guineas.
Set for the Guineas. Lighters on, racing. Our Maze K bounced brilliantly out of gate number 2. Flying Spur given a crack with the whip shortly after the start. Away quickly on the inside of ours. Mace K as Ravada. Strategic goes up third now, followed further back by Burrito. And on the outside of it, then along the back is Cheviot. Further back in the race then came El Quahira Sun going around the outside from Flying Spur. Over on the inside, Vernal Octagonal second last, and last of all is Principality. Our Mace K holds the lead on top of the hill. A half El Quahira Sun, 2 further back Strategic. A half Ravada, fourth the fence, 2 further back then Burrito. A couple further back Vernal on the inside of Cheviot. 1.5 into Flying Spur, 3 deep around Principality. And Octagonal is last as they come down the side now and race towards the 950 metre mark. It's Our Mace K, high balling in front by over a length. El Quahira's Sun, second a length for the back, Ravada third. They're followed by, moving up fourth, 1 off the fence, Strategic. 1.5 then Burrito fifth, 1.5 further back in the race then. Came on the inside, Cheviot. Going around the outside, Octagonal about 5 off the front of the 600 metre mark from Vernal. Then Flying Spur and Principality last of all. Our Mace K in full flight before the turn at the 500 metre mark. A half length in front. On the outside, El Quahira's Sun, Strategic pulled to the outside. Then Ravada trying to get out from Octagonal and further back Burrito. Our Mace K gives them the slip though around the turn. He booted away 2.5 Ravada. Then further back Strategic, Octagonal down the outside from Vernal. It's Our Mace K at the 150 metre mark. His performance is going to do the talking. This mighty little Kiwi is out 4 in front and holding Ravada and Octagonal. Our Mace K, a little champ. Scores 3 lengths. Second Ravada, a half third is Octagonal.
Yeah, as Brian Martin said, a little champion, maybe a champion. He's got a little way to go yet, but he's on the way, isn't he, Keith?
An exciting day's racing. 2 horses won different races of different types yesterday, and they've probably set up one of the best Cox Plate clashes ahead of us for years, Bruce. But look, it's 1984. Dane win and the 3-year-old Our Maze K. It was 1984, the last Guineas winner to win a Cox Plate. That was Red Anchor. He was a staying type. And I remember, sadly, back to 1977 when Luskin Star, who was as good as this fellow, Our Maze K, couldn't run a place in the Cox Plate.
Yeah, Raffendale's Cox Plate. I think, Ray, how would you, if you had to mark up a price on Danewin and Our Maze K, we shouldn't really forget Mahogany, I guess, and
that's
Jern.
Exactly, yeah.
Who'd be favourite for the Cox Plate today?
No doubt in the world, Danewin would be Bruce, because he's the specialist 2,000 metre horse, whereas the other horse is coming through, has got as far as a mile. We don't know whether he'll go any further.
Lee, you made the point that the horses were pulling with 800 metres to run in that race behind the leader.
Well, I think the point of the argument is that, I mean, I've been on this show before, much earlier in the season, and said I think he's a fantastic horse. So there's no way I'd knock a horse like Our Maze K, but I don't think yesterday's race was any test of anything.
Max?
I agree completely. It was run at a dawdling pace. It was put on for our Mayskay. I'm not taking anything away from our Mayskay either. I think our Mayskay is a great sprinter and has a touch of freak, and it's that touch of freak which you've got to consider as far as the Cox Plate is concerned. But nothing, the horses that gave our Mayskay a start under yesterday's conditions were tremendously disadvantaged.
Well, same scenario as Vo Rogue, surely, Max. I mean, if you take him on, you destroy yourself.
No. Keith, Vo Rogue used to get out in front and break them up. That horse was allowed to trot and canter in front.
If you have a look at it, Max, there was a horse there halfway in the field who started pulling his teeth out halfway, and the only horse who was really travelling was the leader.
Have you done the sectionals on the race yet?
Not as yet, no.
Right.
But they would have. It looked like jumping out, running, 1,000 and evens and sprint home.
Do you think any horse should have taken, any jockey should have taken him on?
Absolutely. I think every other rider in the race showed absolutely no initiative.
But whoever took him on would crucify his own chances.
How do you know? How do you know, Keith?
He would have just taken the
They
set.
crucified their own chances.
Well, Burrito led all the way at Mooney Valley
front.
in the Bill Stud Stakes. He didn't even contest the lead.
Well, Grant Searle was obviously delighted. Craig Willis was at Caulfield yesterday doing our interviews, and this is what the trainer of our Mayskay had to say.
Every race he goes to, somebody seems to think they're going to beat him, but I think he's just an exceptional horse. I mean, he is bred to stay, so I sort of still thought with the speed he showed we could have our doubts about getting a mile, but, oh, geez, he's just shown him today again.
The pace was on very early in the race.
Well, he put the pace on, and Rivado went to go with him, but just couldn't, and I just heard Brian saying, you know, he just gets stronger and stronger every race.
Terrific win for the crowd here. They really have embraced the horse.
I was listening to the radio today. They've called him the Victorian horse. Now, look, he's everybody's horse. I mean, he's done it in New Zealand. He's got some of the Sydney behind him. Wherever he seems to go, they just seem happy with him. So I'm quite happy for everybody to have something to say about whatever, you know.
What's the program now? Will you see how he pulls up before the Cox Plate?
See how he is, and we'd have to look at the Cox Plate on that. He's pulled up all right. I've just been out and had a look at him, and the way he's pulled up at this stage here, we'd be looking at the Cox Plate.
Jim Wilson rang me a short time ago, was with Grant earlier this morning. Two things, Boss or Di will get the ride. They'll decide tonight, unless anyone knows any better here. And also, he's talking about the Derby. He'll run him in the Derby if he comes through the Cox Plate pretty well, which is a bit of a surprise.
It is a surprise. 48.5 kilos in the Cox Plate. Boss and Di, would Di make that?
Yeah, easily.
Oh yes, Di'd make it. I think he'd have a better chance, all things being well and the horse being fit in the Derby against his own age than he would in the Cox Plate. And I'm not ruling him out of the Cox Plate either, but against his own age, he's just so dominant.
Bruce, he reminds me very much of a Vane. I'm not saying he was as good as Vane, but he very similar to Vane in that he jumps out of the stalls, he controls the race. And Vane wouldn't have won a Cox Plate.
Manicato used to control races earlier.
Exactly.
Look, we picked out a few of the great horses that have won the Caulfield Guineas in recent years. How do you... I mean, we put Mahogany up. I don't think Mahogany's as good as these other horses, by the way. Sorry, Lee, it's just these are the absolute best. But we put him up because he'll probably run against our Mayskay.
Nice of you to include him anyway, Bruce.
But, I mean, we've had some wonderful horses, haven't we?
Red Anchor won at Cox Plate, Grosvenor, second to Kingston Town, Manicato.
So round Sobar, Vane, Tulloch. Now, is he capable of being in that class? Because he's going to have to be to win the Cox Plate.
But they're all staying, well, apart from Manicato, they're all staying bred.
And Vane. Oh, no, Vane.
They're all staying bred.
So, yeah.
See, like Grosvenor won the Derby, Red Anchor won the Derby, Mahogany won the Derby, Surround won the Oaks, Sobar won the Derby, Tulloch won the Derby.
Max?
Just going back a little further, No Home.
Yeah.
More of a sprinting three. What the three-year-old has got to have to win the Cox Plate, a good Cox Plate, as this one will be, is a dash of freak. Yeah. And Surround had it, although a staying type. No Home a sprinting type. This horse has a dash of freak.
You give him a chance in the Cox Plate?
I give him a chance. I'm not saying I've got him on top. I give him a chance.
After the show, I'll get you to tell me the No Home story. Max, I wasn't around then.
No, well,
what about the Golden Slipper? From your point of view, Lee, you've had three horses win the last three. Poor old Bint Mayskay broke down.
Yes.
Dan Zero, you never really got back.
No.
And this bloke's gone now, isn't he? Flying Spur for this spring.
Well, unfortunately, he's pulled up with a little bit of a... I don't like making excuses for us, but he has got a bit of a sore back, so I don't know what to make of it. The horse has gone brilliantly during the week and just didn't fire on them.
In the yard, he was the pick of them.
He was, and he worked better than any horse we had in work this week.
Mahogany. It would be one of your greatest feats if you can win. Where's he at for the people at home that are going to support him in the Cox Plate?
Bruce, it's been a terrific challenge, and I've enjoyed it. It's been a really good journey with the horse. I think he's going the best he's ever gone at the moment. The best he's ever gone.
Good enough to beat our Mayskay?
Yes.
Good enough to beat Dane Wynn?
Yes.
Well, he's the man. He's the man.
Well, it's certainly going to be hard to beat. Look, we'll look at the other three big races shortly, but I reckon the saddest story all week is surrounded Simon Marshall.
Yes, well, we hope that we don't ever have to penalise Simon Marshall any further, but I'm sure that if Simon presents himself overweight at the scales again, he'll get penalised again.
The words of Chief Steward Pat Lawler just before the end of Marshall's last suspension 1 week ago. The 24-year-old had incurred 8 such bans and 21 weight-related fines in his 8-year career, but because of a new exercise and diet program introduced to him by a former world champion boxer Jeff Fennick, was confident it would not happen again. Unfortunately, though, his comeback was over before it had even begun. The night before his scheduled first race on Alpina at Cranbourne on Wednesday, Marshall rang trainer Gerald Ryan to voice concern that he might not make the 57.5-kilo weight and could fall foul of the stewards again. Darren Gauci took the ride and added insult to injury by going on to win. And it would only get worse when Marshall was called to explain his failure to take the ride at a VRC stewards inquiry on Thursday. The panel charged him with accepting a ride outside his weight bracket and not fulfilling an engagement, and after lengthy deliberations, suspended him for a further 2 months, at this, the most crucial time of the year.
You know, you win a couple of good races this time of year, and as your year's work out of the way, I think that it's very harsh on any time of the year, 2 months, but it's vitally important this time of year.
Marshall denied his battle with weight signalled the end of his career.
You know, I would have been quite happy just to come back to ride 57 and work away at getting as many opportunities at that weight. And, you know, I mean, there's Roy Higgins and Jeff Lane, they rode 56, 57, 58 from any time of year, and they were still leading jockeys, so there was no reason why I couldn't have done that.
But the prospect of putting in yet another 2 months of hard yakka with the risk of further penalty in future is not one he welcomes.
Tough question, Kate. That's where I'll have to go home and think about, you know, a livelihood. To tell you the truth, I couldn't afford this to happen again.
Marshall lodged an appeal later that evening. Meanwhile, the stewards will report to the committee, and the issue of whether or not Marshall should keep his jockey's licence could be raised.
Personally, I don't think the worst has happened yet, so we'll wait and see.
Well, in one of I think the Sunday Age today, it was suggested he should be fined, not suspended, for not making the weight. What do you think, Kev?
Another paper suggested that Simon's like a drug addict, a promise not to do it again, but addictively does it again. 57.5, that's 9 stone 1. If he can't make that, he can't continue as a jockey.
Do you think the weights should be raised?
I definitely think the weight should be raised.
Incidentally, the weights have been raised in Sydney. The minimum has gone up, or will go up, from December 1, from 51 to 52 in the Metropolitan and provincial.
We are all getting bigger, aren't we? I mean,
oh, of course.
It's well documented that we're all getting bigger, and it's shouldn't be done in response to Simon's case. I think it's a fairly general opinion right throughout racing.
Fair enough. We're going to take a break, and after the break, we're going to look at the other big races, including Dame Win's win in the Caulfield Stakes. Welcome back. What a day of racing it was, not only with our Maze K, but also with Dane Win yesterday in the Caulfield Stakes. Not a bad effort, Keith. The win first up. We've seen some great Sydney horses not able to win at Caulfield. This horse at his first start, I think it's one of his real gifts that he's so tractable, isn't he? He jumps well, he takes the position, and all those things came to his advantage yesterday. He's superbly ridden.
We've been crying out for a spring hero. We got it at New Caulfield yesterday with Dane Win. His 2,000-metre record is superb. 5 wins from 7 starts at it. Yesterday, brilliantly ridden by a first-time rider for him, Damien Oliver.
And what about Jern's performance? Do you think
poleaxed, and that's why the protest. That's Jern, last horse in the screen with the blue and white. We won't see that interference until rounding the home turn, but he does get poleaxed, and Wayne Harris protested 6th against 3rd, which is unusual, but stewards quickly upheld it, and Starstruck was relegated.
He just dominated the unfortunate thing was Taradu, obviously, out of the race early, which was a real shame, but Oliver was able to really dictate the race. Stony Bay now goes past Dame Win, but he has the box seat. He's got an outsider in Pearl Prince
Notorious hanger.
Yeah,
Notorious hanger.
yeah, exactly. And he's just travelling so well. Where the other horse, Jern's out the back. A couple of good New Zealand runs, weren't they? It's All in Fun and Mr. Marconi were good on us. And I thought Starstruck, who's about 7th at the moment in the grey colours, she did beat Jern fair and square in the Australian Cup last year.
Stony Bay, now this is one of the likely invitees to the Japan Cup. He's in his favourite role. He's leading.
He won't
no, but what went wrong?
Well, he seemed to hang, didn't he?
Yes, there was a bit of pace on. There was a bit of... He certainly wasn't enjoying himself, and that's the point. But have a look at Dane Wynn there. Oliver's got him going perfectly, and that's why Dane Wynn is so good at weight for age. He can take up a position, well, so good at weight for age when he's ridden, right?
He's a professional racer.
He can take up a position, and he doesn't really accelerate through an opening, but he keeps grinding away. He's going to be very hard to beat the Cox Plate.
Was he ridden right yesterday, Max?
Was he what?
Melbourne jockey.
He's a great rider. Look, we'll see the interference to Jern in a moment. There's Dane Wynn just sitting third, and he really... The split comes at the top of the straight. You'll see it in a moment. He comes through when Stony Bay and Pearl Prince are... Look at Jern in the Actalac colours. Now, you watch him get poleaxed.
Blue and white stripe.
Now, look at that. Bang.
Oh, dear.
Now, Dane Wynn gets through. Jern's out of the race completely. Look, this is not a knock on Dane Wynn. He is what Lee said. He's a really professional horse. He hasn't got great acceleration. I'm not sure if he would have been able to come around this field and beat them. I mean...
Oh, it's nothing pulling ground there. Don't be too hard a mark.
I'm not being hard on him. I just don't think
Jern was pulling a little ground there, but that's the go with Jern. Jern, if there's any interference, Jern will cop it. And the beautiful thing with Dane Wynn, as I said before, he can take up a position. That's why he does so well in 2,000-metre races. That's why he will always be so competitive at weight for age.
Did you have a good look at Dane Wynn yesterday, Ray? And Lee, did he look at his peak? Damien Oliver said after the race he thought there was improvement there.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And that's Bobby Thompson said before the race too. But it's all in fun. The horse that ran second, the New Zealander, still a bit rough in the coat and certainly would improve. But 55.5 in a Caulfield Cup. Just wonder whether might be too much weight.
It's a good horse's weight, isn't it, mate?
It is a lot of weight, isn't it, to try and win the Caulfield Cup with. Look, Damien was thrilled to bits. He spoke to Craig Willis after the win.
Well, congratulations. A great way to start the Spring Carnival, then.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. He's a great horse, isn't he?
He certainly is, and won very convincingly.
He did. You know, he had a perfect run in behind the leaders, and, you know, the run came at the top of the straight there, and he just darted through it.
What's the program now?
He goes straight into the Cox Plate.
He's run there before, hasn't he? At
He has, yeah.
last year?
He ran an exceptional race last year in the Cox Plate. He ran 5th, I think, after travelling wide all the way. So, you know, he's a more seasoned type of horse now, and you'd expect him to be very hard to beat in it.
Nice to have a partnership with a good horse.
It sure is, yeah. It's a bonus to get on a horse like this, I tell you. It makes the job a bit easier.
All right, Damien, good luck.
Thanks, mate.
Yes, actually, he was having a bit of a giggle with me after the race. He said I was in the perfect position. He said I was just waiting for Pearl Prince to hang, and he said he didn't hang early enough. He said, when are you going to hang? Hurry up and hang.
You could be relying on him to hang, but I don't think he's ever been round.
Actually, put a number 9 Richmond Guernsey on, Damien. You've got Wayne Campbell, haven't you?
Yeah, he's got the old Tom Cruise look along at the back. Does he ride mahogany and track work for you?
No, he doesn't. Greg Hall
does all the work. Does all the work.
How do you think Mahogany would have gone in that race yesterday?
Would have won.
Same run, he would have won.
Yeah, look, that's the thing with Damien. It was like Jern in the Melbourne Cup. Had Paris Lane had Jern's weight, I mean, you can run, he wins by 2.5. It's just the way racing is. But the good thing about Damien is that he just keeps putting himself in a position to win, and that he's a professional horse. Sober Suit. Gee, it must have been a bit bittersweet for Gerald Ryan in the Turak yesterday. He was watching Baryshnikov almost, well, dogged, I reckon. I mean, he certainly didn't put in Baryshnikov, did he, over the last little bit? But Sober Suit was a terrific run. I thought there were some interesting runs in this. Dan Arani, excellent.
Should have won.
Yeah, should have. Was really good. And Alcove didn't do much, but she did enough to suggest she still might be a force at the end of the spring.
Well, it was a big improvement on her 2 previous, Bruce, when she's failed her 2 previous runs this time in, but yesterday she's on the way.
See, the point with Sober Suit is drawn nicely, no weight, gets the run of the race, and those horses have been winning this spring.
It was carrying me.
Nick's Joy was won the Epsom, similar sort of circumstances. As Hucker mentioned, Danarani unlucky, but they get back.
The very nature of the race, Max, a handicap, it makes a difference, doesn't it? We saw the best horse win the weight for age Caulfield Stakes, and probably the best handicap chance win this one.
I think particularly this season too, they seem across the board, even in these good Group 1 races, they seem to be a fairly even lot of horses, and so therefore luck and running and barriers are going to play an enormous part.
Gerald Ryan summed it up, I thought, Bruce, when he said Baryshnikov didn't try. The winner is a great try.
Yeah. Let's pick up Brian Martin's call of the concluding stages.
Over on the inside, Sobersuit, when they set sail, Sobersuit trying to get out, about to get out after Island Morn. Then You Remember Hedge, followed by Cut Up Rough, Snap Up the middle. No Baryshnikov today, Island Morn in front, Sobersuit going to it on the outside. Further out is Snap, and here's Seascape from the back of the field, hitting the front, Sobersuit, Seascape after Sobersuit, Sobersuit in front, Sobersuit has beaten Seascape, third's tight, Dana Rani or Island Morn.
What do you think of the direction of the way that race films are going? It worked very well. That's head on at the top of the straight. We missed our Maze Case acceleration. You want to pull your hair out, don't you? Dane Win it worked for because he gets the split. Do you think they're doing the right thing by having that head-on shot?
Not on the turn.
No, I don't like it, but I suppose it's a matter of taste. But I think you're losing a certain angle at a very important part of the race.
And now that we're getting stewards' footage afterwards, well, why do we need to drop it in the call?
Yeah. You could drop it in as a replay, I think, don't you?
Yeah, there's also a new type of camera, Bruce, a $500,000 camera that is being experimented with in England, where you can pick up the sweat on a jockey's face, and that's...
I can't wait for that. I cannot wait.
What about the punters?
Just back to that Toorak handicap, we must mention the rider, Brett Preble, the only apprentice in the race, and he got the money. Well done.
Turned 18, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago? Look, Gerald Ryan had this to say. He was obviously wrapped in Sobersuit. He also talks about Baryshnikov to Craig.
Is Sobersuit a better horse than you thought?
Not really. Race performance-wise, yes, but you know, as a young horse, I always thought him and Hurricane Sky, they used to run with the two best times as two-year-olds. I thought he was my second best two-year-old, but he's just taking a bit of time to mature up and that. Now, he raced well in the autumn, probably he was placed very well and ran his right classes, and probably which enabled him to get the strike rate he's got and get in a race like this with no weight in his back. But no, he has come of age now, and if he can win another one, well, he's a really good horse.
I'll use the expression bittersweet because Baryshnikov, a little disappointing.
He was very disappointing, to say the least. You know, he got back in the ruck, and I wanted him ridden back. And but then when I was watching it on the TV, Darren gave him a slap to go forward at the 600-metre mark, and there was nothing there, and his ears went back, and you start worrying. Then that far from home in a Group 1 race, you got no hope.
What are the prospects now for Sobersuit? What's next on the agenda?
He'll run, no, we thought if he performed really good here today, he'd run in the Water for Crystal in a fortnight, and a fortnight after that the Nissan, so I've got no reason to change now, and he'll stick to that plan and then come back and try and win mile races in the autumn.
What about Baryshnikov?
A lot of hope, back to the drawing board with him, I think. Just go home and think about it, don't make any rash decisions on a race course, but, he might need blinkers, might need freshening up, might need, the paddock. We'll just wait and work it out, see what happens in the next 24 hours.
Not sure what sort of a guide it was to the Caulfield Cup. Probably just alcove, maybe. What about the Quick Ease yesterday? Unsolved. He carried a big weight. It was looking up last night. Nalako in 1961 had 9 stone 3. It's been that long since a horse has carried Unsolved's weight and won. But did think a couple from the Waterhouse stable were a bit stiff. The new electronic.
Oh, there were some eye-catching runs in the race. There were some flops too. I mean, Blevick won't run in the Caulfield Cup now. I don't know what's gone wrong with the Derby winner. That's him in the white cap running up to about 6th, but then he peters out. Yeah, a couple of goes with the eye-catching.
Pratara's Bay was good. Look, we'll pick up the call again here. Unsolved is G's game, and Fewer Chosen, who, Max, you tipped me on Friday. You thought it could win. It was 20 to 1. It gets up on the inside. Have a look at this. Now, gee, you'd see the sweat on Maxie's brow if you had the camera.
Go, you good thing. Fewer Chosen has just come on. That's the sort of horse Pratara's Bay is. But Lee, how do you gauge the strength in that form? You had the minor place getter. Or do you see that as a good Caulfield Cup trial and perhaps a Melbourne Cup trial?
Zero Limit being your horse.
Well, Zero Limit's been going all right, but I'd have to say that at this stage I'd place him probably third or fourth of our Cups chances. It was nice to see him run a good race. I don't know what to make of the form from that race. A lot of horses finished together, but as you say, there were some good staying efforts. Perhaps more so from the Melbourne Cup point of view than the Caulfield Cup.
Michael Iskander's given us his market. Now, your favourite with Doremus, is he your number one, do you think, or do you think... Look, Shaskay's got 16 to 1 and Doremus 5 to 1 favourite. Which is your number one?
Well, no question. If Shaskay makes the race sound, from the Caulfield Cup point of view, he'd be our favourite because, I mean, he's got the weight pull on the weight for age scale and he's been flying.
Ray, you'll make a living out of assessing prices. I mean, we're looking at Michael now, the bookmaker. You've got a completely different market.
I think if Sharsky runs, I agree with Lee. I think he starts favourite clearly. And if he hadn't had the mishap, I would have thought he would be about a 3-to-1 favourite for the race. With the weight, he's run in the weight for age races. He was a good thing in the Caulfield Cup until that happened.
Gee, it looks a bit thin, doesn't it? Gee, Caulfield Cup, but some of those horses we weren't thinking about a month ago, and a lot of them haven't got brilliant form. It's just, they're still standing, aren't they?
Gee, a lot of them have. Well, there's nothing wrong really with all our mobs form, although you might say the 2,400 metres. Starstruck did win an Australian Cup. I think it's going to be a very interesting race. It's been a difficult race to assess because of the dropouts, but Lee Friedman holds the key. If he can get Sharsky to the post fit, I think Sharsky will win.
Yeah, Keith, you got strong thoughts on it?
I was a Sharsky man. I think Lee's got, he's pushing a barrow uphill now. Unfortunately for Lee, I doubt whether a horse can miss a race like that and win the Cup. This was going to be Sharsky's year. Now I think it's going to be all our mob's year.
Well, Lee, when will you know? What day do you reckon you'll know whether the horse can run or not?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah. Melbourne Cup, Michael's market there. Double Trigger, still the favourite. This is all, again, you've got the second favourite here, Lee. Ed didn't do much, I didn't think.
Yeah, the query on Ed, I guess, was whether he'd get round Caulfield. He's a very big striding horse. He won the Wellington Cup. Wellington's a lovely big track, very similar to Flemington. And I don't think you should take too much away from Ed until he gets to Flemington.
The Storm, Lee's horse, is the second favourite. He's the shortest price Southern Hemisphere horse, and contrary to his name, he must have a dry track, Lee.
Yeah, he loves firm ground, Keith, yeah.
He's won one race in his life, hasn't he?
He's won a midweek at Canterbury. It's quite astounding that he's second favourite.
Second favourite.
What about Doremus? This might be your sleeper. We haven't got around to that yet.
Well, I've always thought of him as my Melbourne Cup horse. I know he's high up in he's favourite for the Caulfield Cup.
I mean, only 2 wins this year for Doremus too, a welter and the Graysmith Stakes.
But he hasn't had many races. I mean, he is a super horse, potentially. I mean, when he won in Brisbane...
Remember that?
Oh, I love him. He could be anything.
I can't work you out. Doremus is super horse and you're knocking Damon.
No, I'm not knocking Damon. I'm not knocking... One's won...
Get it in context.
How much money's Doremus won? About 80,000. The other one's won 1.6. Yeah. Something's wrong with me,
That's why I can't... You're right. You've got that right.
Obviously, I don't need the money. No, but when I say super horse, potentially... I remember when he won on Caulfield Cup Day last year. Gee, it was exciting. It was the last race of the day and Damien, I think, fell off.
Well, to be honest, it's taken us 12 months to get the horse back to that sort of form. He hasn't been the easiest horse to train. He's had soundness problems, but he's as sound, touch wood, as he's ever been at the moment. And
he only had to go either side to touch wood, by the way.
Yeah.
Max or Hucker.
Making any statements about horses' soundness, you've got to touch wood in the last couple of weeks. But no, we're very happy with him.
It's remarkable that he's the one that's come through.
Yes, it is, isn't it? It's paradoxical.
Max, the 1,000 Guineas Wednesday, I think Sydney has probably Pontolas or Brackenbank. Who runs favourite, do you think? Oh, Ray, Hucker. Who's favourite? The 1,000 Guineas, the Pontolas or Brackenbank?
Oh, the last, not Brackenbank, after the last run.
Is she the best from Sydney, Pontolas?
Yes, Pontolas is a very good racehorse, but I can't say I'd be taking a silly price. What odds did you have in mind, Hucker?
You'd have to have a look at the field, the barriers, all that sort of thing, Max.
Probably about 9 to 4, 5 to 2, something, wouldn't it?
Oh, maybe.
And just a little further down
like
the track from New Zealand yesterday, Solvit, last year's Cox Plate winner, won again on the plane to Melbourne this Tuesday, so it's going to be a great
day. He's a super... super horse? No, he's a super Moonee Valley horse. Yeah, like Waterford, Crystal and Cox Plate.
John runs in the Cox Plate? I would think he'd be running, wouldn't he?
I think so, yeah.
You couldn't really know.
I'll tell you one thing about the Cox Plate. I don't think it'll be run like the Caulfield Guineas.
No. I'll tell you one thing about this morning's program. 4 times Lee has told us how well Mahogany's going. That's worth remembering.
It sure is. Catch you all next week. Good punting. Terrific punting. Lee Freeman, Ray Huxley, Max Presnell, Keith Hillier. Steve Mortimer joins us after this. World Cup Rugby League.